collaboration is not easy. Like, it requires, kind of like hard work and that kind of thing. But it's nice when like the default is like, hey, how can I help you? Hi, my name's Shammas Malik. You're watching the GM interview.
All right, so what's your story?
I'm an attorney here in Akron. I grew up in the neighborhood, went to Firestone High School. My mom taught at the University of Akron for 22 years, chemical engineering department. Because of the community, because of the neighborhood I grew up in, I was able to get a scholarship to the Ohio State University. Was able to go on to Harvard Law School. Ultimately decided to move back home to Akron, try to work in government, policy, and politics, and try to make an impact on the neighborhood that made such an impact on me.
What kind of impact did that make for you?
The primary thing was the IB program at Firestone High School, right? And the International Baccalaureate program teaches kids like a really rigorous work ethic. We were doing organic chemistry in like 11th and 12th grade, and like I haven't used organic chemistry for a single thing as like a political science student in college, but those long lab reports going into the evening, like, were super important in teaching me needing to be in the library, needing to study, and that kind of thing. In college and in law school, I gravitated towards sort of political science and government and law because I wanted to understand how government and law could be used to positively improve people's lives and create a sort of more stronger and more equitable communities. I spent a lot of time in Washington, in like my summers doing internships and that kind of thing. And I thought about going there after law school, but ultimately kind of, like I said, wanted to come back home and sort of try to make an impact on more of a local level. Akron is kind of, people sometimes say it's sort of like the smallest big city or the biggest small town at the same time. And so it's kind of a place where you feel like you can make an impact, and where like you kind of feel like that impact means something. That's a lot of why I wanted to move back home.
It looks like you've been to DC a lot. Like, how many times have you been to DC?
Maybe it's like 3 or 4 summers I spent there in like college and law school.
Okay.
And doing different things. Like one summer I was working at this. The first summer was this group, the Muslim Public Affairs Council, which is like a political advocacy organization for Muslim Americans.
Yeah.
And then another summer was Center for American Progress, sort of like a left-leaning think tank. The last time I was there was my first summer of law school. I got a chance to work at the Pentagon in the General Counsel's office, the lawyers there for the Department of Defense. And that was like a crazy experience because you're walking into like the Pentagon in the morning, and there's a guy there at the door with this enormous machine gun.
Yeah.
And he'll look at you and he'll say, "Good morning, sir." And you're like, don't talk to me. I'm good, thank you. But this is just like a crazy experience. One of the things that we did, we met, all the interns met with like the General Counsel. This is top lawyer for the Department of Defense, like the biggest federal department. And we said, like, what impact do you have on policy? And he said, policy, I stay the hell away from policy. And I get that because, in the Pentagon, right, the turf wars are actual wars.
Right.
I get that. I thought, if I was super lucky and was able to get an entry-level position as an attorney in the federal government, in 30 years, I could aspire to perhaps one day have this guy's job, and I would still have no impact on the policy. That is kind of what makes me want to get up in the morning.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of what sort of led me to, okay, what about coming back home?
What was the Muslim group you said it was called?
It was the Muslim Public Affairs Council.
So, what's the name behind calling it Muppies?
So I think it's like Muslim yuppies. You know the terminology. But there's like a growing group of like Muslim young professionals in the DC area, and I don't know it too well, but they have their group called Muppies. It's like this like closed Facebook group, and you can get invited to it or apply to be in it or whatever. And I mean, but there's a lot of great people doing awesome work there, and there's a lot of people doing awesome work here, right? I mean, that's one of the cool things I really like about Akron, is that there's kind of this, there's people in all these different spaces, whether it's sort of the nonprofit and philanthropic space, or the public sector, or the private sector, or the arts, who are all kind of doing interesting things in their lanes.
Yeah.
And like, look, this is interesting stuff you're doing here. And, there's kind of also like this, like, the default is like collaboration and like, how can I help you?
Right.
Or how can we work together? Or like, how can we figure this out. Collaboration is not easy. Like it requires, you know, kind of like hard work and that kind of thing. But it's nice when like the default is like, hey, how can I help you? There's so many people all across this town who are just like, yeah, what can I do for you? And like that's kind of like that positive spirit is something that, you know, is kind of special about Akron. You're
big into hip hop, right?
Yeah.
What was your favorite concert that you've been to?
That's a really good question. I would have to say it's like Kanye in Boston, because Kanye never came to Ohio when I was like in high school or college.
Yeah.
And I missed out. I'm going to the Glow in the Dark tour in Chicago, the last stop. Like one of my friends went from high school.
Yeah.
I missed out on going, and so I like always wanted to see this guy, like my favorite guy. I recognize that it's 2019 when we're recording this, and like that's problematic now. But anyways, like my favorite guy, and like Yeezus is not my favorite album, not like a wonderful album in many regards, like kind of too avant-garde.
Yeah.
But standing there in like TD Garden and like Can't Tell Me Nothing comes on, and you're just like, oh my goodness, like are you kidding? Like, just like even the bad songs.
Yeah.
Like when you play them live in TD Garden are amazing. It was kind of weird now in retrospect, like Kendrick opening up for Kanye.
Yeah.
Kendrick is huge now. But no, I've seen some other. There was a crazy one where Jay Electronica, like this really small, you know, kind of like indie, super indie guy.
Right.
And like 2009, right? Or was it 2010, right? When he got popular?
Yeah.
Or like just one song, Exhibit C.
Right.
And he came to this like small bar in Columbus. There were so many bad opening acts, so nobody wanted to be in the front.
Yeah.
So he got right up there in the front. And so when he comes out, we're right there in the front. And this dude gets out onto the floor during Exhibit C, and he like puts his arm around us, and like we're like, it's crazy. And so like as we get to the chorus, I like I'm like, hey, like man, like Assalamu alaikum, because he's Muslim.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, he stops the music. And he's like, well, alaikum assalam, it's so good to see you. Like, how are you doing? All this stuff. He gives me the mic, and now, like, I'm doing, like, Exhibit C. And I'm just like, this is insane. Like, this is incredible. And that was, like, one of the craziest moments ever.
As being seen in many pictures with different public figures and celebrities, like, ranging from Jay Electronica to Barack Obama.
Yeah. I don't know if there's many others beyond those.
Okay. Well, I mean, any other public figures too. Like, what's your strategy for snagging a pic with a celebrity?
I was just a huge Barack Obama fan.
Right.
And it was actually, that's crazy because just like a block away.
Right.
The first time I ever saw President Obama, I think a lot of people in town, the first time they ever saw President Obama was in the spring of 2008 before the primary. He came to the John S. Knight Center. It was a day kind of like today. It was like a freezing cold day.
Yeah.
And the line wrapped all the way around the entire block of the Knight Center. So you almost started at like the door and then went all the way around. It was like 4 hours people are outside or something.
Wow.
And don't fact check me on that. But it felt like forever.
Right.
Everyone's like streaming towards the front, and this guy's wandering around the space, and he's yelling out, "Obama for world peace, Obama for world peace," and it's stuck in my mind forever. Because like this guy like a year and a half later, like Barack Obama wins the Nobel Peace Prize. Like this guy knew. So he came to Ohio State a lot, going to the events like early, and just kind of there was the rope line, and there was a guy like right in front of me.
Yeah.
So I reached around him and I shook like Obama's one of his hands.
Yeah.
And then I reached around and I shook the other hand. I was super proud of that. But no, I mean it's just he's such like an inspirational figure. And as a kid who was like interested in like politics and stuff, as like a high school and college student who was like, you know, had a funny name, and you know, it was like, wow, this guy's amazing. So
yeah.
I mean, obviously not perfect. You know,
right.
There's certainly drawbacks, but you know, was super inspirational figure. So
I guess what inspired you to run for council?
My mom.
Yeah.
Like I said, my mom taught at the University of Akron for 22 years. Like her whole life was in service of public education, was in service of other people. You know, like she spent long hours, you know, at the university. She spent like longer hours raising me and my brother. And she was so focused on other people. Like it wasn't about like living for other people. It was finding joy in serving other people in a kind of like in a positive way. And the most important lesson she ever taught me was that life is not about wealth. It's not about notoriety. It's about what you can do for others. The thing that I was most interested in was policy and government and that kind of thing. So it's how can you serve in that capacity? City Council is kind of, you know, working in the city, having a good understanding of the city. I said, you know, this would be a cool thing to do to give back to the community that, like I said, had such an impact on me. You know, there's been a lot of like super fulfilling moments so far. You knock on a door and it's like your 8th grade English teacher, kind of tying it full circle to my mom. Knocked on this door and there was this woman, and she had done some work with the city on infant mortality, and I had worked on those issues too. And so we got to talking. It was a really good conversation, and she was like interested in helping out and stuff on the campaign. I friended her on Facebook, and then maybe like a week later, I posted this like reflection about my mom. And she commented on it. She was like, "Did your mom play tennis at Springside and Montrose?"
Yeah.
I was like, "My mom did play tennis at Springside and Montrose." And she was like, "I used to play tennis with your mom all the time. Like, your mom was awesome."
Yeah.
And like, you know, if that's the only thing that comes out of this campaign, that's like, you know, that's amazing.
Right.
Because like those kinds of moments where you know, like she understands where I'm coming from a little bit. I understand where she's coming from. I understand kind of, you know, a little bit more about her life and vice versa. I think that can help inform the kinds of public policy that we have.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the kinds of structures we have. And, you know, there's huge challenges that we have in the city of Akron of opportunity, about equality, about, you know, poverty, about all kinds of things. And, you know, if we can kind of understand the other people, understand people beyond ourselves a little bit better, hopefully that will, you know, help us make an impact on those issues. And getting to know people who are like not like you, right? I mean, because like growing up in Northwest Akron, how much time did I spend in North Hill or like on Kenmore Boulevard or in Elliott? Like zero.
Yeah.
Like zero. Yeah. The only time I was ever down at Summit Lake was because, you know, there was a masjid that was down there, and before they built like the nice fancy mosque in the suburbs, like we go to the Akron masjid, right? And which is predominantly African American, which there's a whole story there about like Muslims in America and like Black Muslims and immigrant Muslims. You have to try to step outside your comfort zone and get to know people who are not like you, even if you just barely met them, because of some common, you know, understanding. And that's why I was trying to say, like, you know, you find out some little fact about someone and you understand where they're coming from. Like, and you, even if you're not, you guys' lives are just totally different. You understand where they're coming from a little bit. And you can like sympathize. You know, I felt like I knew like 5 people who voted for Trump, and I was like, I definitely know more, like, but you know, I don't know enough. You know, and it's sometimes hard having those conversations because like something like the Muslim ban feels a little dehumanizing when like you're Muslim, right? But at the end of the day, like we have to try to be vulnerable, to try to open up a little bit, because we all got to live together, all neighbors and friends and whatever. So but I think stuff like this, right, where like you're sort of like, you know, discussing, like, you know, trying to delve a little bit into what makes people tick, I think is super helpful. So thank you for watching, and keep jamming.